So, let me ask you something. What if our entire system of government is, well, obsolete? Not just a few policies here and there, but the whole operating system. Today, we're exploring a pretty radical blueprint for a replacement, Meritocratic Social Dirigism, or MSD. Let's dive in. But before we can get into this wild new idea, we've got to understand the sheer scale of the problem it's trying to solve. And it really starts with this feeling, a feeling a lot of us have, that our systems just feel fundamentally broken.
The framework we're looking at today kicks off with this just really powerful statement. Think about that phrase for a second. Convergent architectural collapse. I mean, that's not saying we need to fix a few leaky pipes. It's saying the whole foundation of the house is crumbling.
And look, this isn't just some vague feeling. The numbers, they tell the same story. You see it in the public trust in our institutions, which is just cratered. You see it in the fact that it's harder than ever to get ahead economically. You see it in our total failure to protect the planet, and of course, in the insane political divisions that are tearing us apart. The argument here is that these aren't separate problems. No, they're all symptoms of the same disease.
So the diagnosis is pretty blunt. According to this way of thinking, it really doesn't matter what system you're looking at. Unfettered free markets? Yep. Our current liberal democracies? Them too. Even authoritarian states. The argument is they're all just showing their age. They're just not built for the crazy complexity of the 21st century.
All right, so if the old ways of doing things are collapsing, what's next? Well, this MSD proposal isn't about patching things up with duct tape. It's about designing a totally new fourth architecture from the ground up.
So what in the world is meritocratic social dirigism? Yeah, it's a mouthful, I know. Let's break it down. Meritocratic, that means led by people who know what they're doing, the experts. Social means it's all focused on the public good, for everyone. And dirigism, that's just a fancy French word for strategic state direction. The whole idea is to blend the best of all worlds. You get democratic will from the people, you get effectiveness from the experts, and you get some smart long-term planning. It's basically a whole new rulebook for how society runs.
This whole new architecture is built on 5 big ideas, 5 foundational pillars, and each one is designed to fix a specific failure in our current systems. Let's take a look at how they all fit together.
Okay, here's the rundown. First up, a new kind of democracy, a hybrid democracy. Second, a new way of running the economy with some strategic state guidance. Third, a social covenant that guarantees the basics for everyone. Fourth, cultural freedom for communities to be themselves. And finally, and this is a big one, a radical decentralization of power. All right, let's unpack what all that actually means.
So the first pillar just completely rethinks democracy itself. Picture this. You've got a legislature where, sure, 60% are the politicians we elect, the ones we hold accountable. But the other 40%, they're just regular people, everyday citizens, chosen completely at random. Like jury duty, but for making laws. The idea is to bring some of that grounded, real-world, common-sense perspective right into the halls of power.
The economic model is also a hybrid, a real mix. On the one hand, you have the state's job. That's on the left there. They handle the big picture stuff, right? Steering us toward a green future, building infrastructure, and basically setting the rules of the game so we don't wreck the planet. But, and this is key, inside those guardrails, that's the stuff on the right, the free market is completely unleashed. It's free to do what it does best, drive innovation, create new businesses, and figure out prices.
Now, Pillar 3, the social covenant. This is a real game changer. What it's saying is that things like healthcare, education, housing, they're no longer just political talking points, things to be debated every election cycle. No. Under this system, they become actual constitutional rights, just as fundamental as something like freedom of speech. It's a promise, written in stone.
And the last 2 pillars? They're all about pushing power down and out. Pillar 4 basically tells the central government to get out of the business of telling communities how to live, giving them real cultural freedom. And Pillar 5 takes that even further. It's about radical decentralization, shipping money and decision-making power away from the capital and down to the most local level you can get.
Okay, so this all sounds pretty fascinating, right? A really neat blueprint. But, it's easy to draw up a perfect system on a whiteboard. The real question is, could something this radical ever actually work in the messy, complicated real world?
Well, you'll be interested to hear that the people behind this idea didn't just stop with the theory. They actually went ahead and created a super detailed 30-year roadmap to implement this whole system in a real country, Pakistan. And they chose Pakistan for a reason, because it's a nation facing exactly the kind of tangled, complex challenges this system was designed to solve.
And this isn't some plan for an overnight revolution. Far from it. We're talking about a slow, deliberate, generational shift. It kicks off with a full decade just to build the constitutional foundation. Then another decade of careful experimentation in a few places. And only after all that do you even start thinking about a full national rollout.
So, what's the big payoff for this 30-year marathon? The projected results are, well, they're staggering. Let's look at the actual numbers they're aiming for. This chart right here just perfectly shows that decentralization idea in action. You can see how the plan is to totally flip the script on government funding. Right now, local governments get a tiny sliver of the pie, just 11%. The goal here is to more than double that, up to 25%. That's real money, giving local communities the power to actually solve their own problems.
And the economic projections? I mean, to say they're ambitious is an understatement. We're talking about more than tripling the average person's income, slashing the poverty rate from a shocking 40% all the way down to just 5%, and at the same time cutting both national debt and inequality in a big way. These aren't just minor adjustments. This is a blueprint for a complete economic transformation.
But beyond all the charts and graphs, this one number, it really brings it all home. 22 million. Remember that social covenant we talked about? Well, making education a constitutional right isn't just some abstract idea. For a country like Pakistan, it's a concrete plan to get 22 million kids who right now are not in school into a classroom.
So this whole proposal, this meritocratic social dirigisme, it's a fascinating and, a really provocative thought experiment. It's trying to engineer a better society by blending expert design with the power of the people. And that really leaves us with maybe the most fundamental question there is when it comes to government. What is the right balance between having experts in charge and letting the people decide? There's no easy answer to that, but it's a question we're all going to be grappling with for a long, long time.